Welcome everybody to session 4. Today, we're going to be talking about how to sort of improve upon and deepen the member experience once you already have a membership program. We'll start with a very short presentation by me. I will not be talking very much today before we move into two sort of live case studies from Zetland in Denmark and Black Ballad in the UK. And one thing I wanted to mention before we sort of jump into today, if all of you might recall, in the first session on retention, one of the reasons we encourage news organizations to focus so much on retention is that the longer you keep your members, the deeper the relationship with the members gets, and the more that your members can contribute to your sustainability and impact. And so the reason that we brought Zetland and Black Ballad on today is they offer two really strong examples of what members can do for your organization beyond just giving you their monthly membership fee if you invest really heavily in sort of cultivating community amongst them and creating that deep sort of two-way relationship with them. They'll give you two great examples of how they've been able to bring members into their sustainability work in really impressive ways. And that's why we brought them today. Before we get to them though, I wanted to talk really briefly about sort of making changes to your membership program once it's already out there in the world, once you already have members. A membership program is not a set it and forget it product, like nothing that you're building with audience members in mind is, because your audience members change over time. What they're looking for changes over time. And so it's really important to have a bit of a rhythm in your organization of taking a temperature check on how your membership program is doing a couple times a year and looking at what's working and what's not, and being positioned to sort of make some changes around the margins if you feel like some things aren't quite working the way you need them to. Some of the reasons that organizations might make changes to their membership program after launch, maybe it's not bringing in enough revenue, either overall or the contributions per member. The costs might outweigh the gains of some of the benefits that you're offering. They might just take up too much in terms of staff time and other resources to continue offering. Maybe some of those benefits just aren't being used, and so it's not worth maintaining them and keeping them around. A lot of organizations launch with really sort of high touch benefits, very intimate benefits that require a lot of interaction. As your membership base gets bigger, it might be really hard to continue offering those benefits at that same level. And maybe your membership base has changed and it wants different things. Often organizations sort of first wave of members are your super fans who come to you for one very specific thing or have a very specific relationship with you. And as your membership program grows, the types of people who become members is likely going to change as well. And so that might require sort of different mix of benefits than you initially launch with. So these are all reasons that at MPP, we heard organizations sort of iterate on their membership program over time. There are two ways that you can sort of get cues as to whether you need to make changes to your membership program. One is quite obvious. You might check the data and see what it's telling you about the success of the benefits that you're offering, or you might survey your members. Data-based examples are pretty straightforward. A lot of the things that you're offering are probably entirely online. Maybe you have a member-only newsletter. You're going to want to check the open rate of that. What percentage of members are opening regularly, and whether the open rate on that newsletter has stayed strong even as your member base has grown. If your open rate is dropping, that might indicate that you need to make some changes to the newsletter. Maybe you need to survey your members to find out what they would want out of that. But also every once in a while, you might want to send a really simple 2-question survey to your members. And we stole this idea from Steady, a membership platform in Germany that those of you in Europe might know well. But what they do is they encourage their clients once or twice a year to send out a really simple 2-question survey. Which benefit do you value the most, and which benefit do you value the least? A lot of organizations send some sort of ranking like this, but they often ask people to do, rank all 7 of our benefits, 1 through 7. Tell us which one is best. Tell us which one is least appealing to you. And that kind of works, but it's a lot more work for the member to answer. They have to sit there and think through, do I prefer the newsletter more than the online events? Do I ever use the discounts? And they're sort of trying to figure out that like 1 to 5 ranking. But if you just ask them, which one do you value the most and which one do you value the least, you get the same information internally because it will form a ranking for you as you get the answers back. And so this is something that we and Steady encourage organizations to do every once in a while, is solicit that ranking. You might want to consider the value against the costs of offering that benefit. So how valuable do your members find that benefit versus how hard is it for you to offer that benefit? And if the costs outweigh the value, you might consider phasing that out or figuring out other ways that you can make it a little bit easier to provide. And the last sort of stage of adjusting benefits is that if you do decide to stop offering a benefit, make sure that you take a moment to explain why. How much of an explanation you offer is going to vary based, frankly, on how much people loved that benefit before you phased it out. If you are phasing out something that nobody was using, you probably don't need to say too much about it, other than we decided to stop offering this. But if you are phasing out something that people have really loved, it's going to require more of an explanation. A great example of this, Scalawag, a digital organization that covers the American South, decided last year to phase out their print magazine. This was a beautifully designed quarterly print magazine that their sort of earliest supporters really loved. And Scalawag had to make the tough decision to end it because they could not afford to continue providing the magazine while also pursuing sort of the online growth that they needed to do in order to become sustainable. And so they sent a really detailed email to their members and subscribers to this magazine, explaining why they had to do it, being really transparent about what it cost them to produce that, and also explaining how members could get the same sort of experience, develop the same relationship with Scalawag and its writers through the various online opportunities that they were offering. And that explanation went over fairly well because they were able to couch that decision in sort of the longevity of the organization and be very transparent about why they were ending that. And when you're thinking about adjusting the benefits, there are two questions that you could potentially ask. If those of you have, if anyone here has read the membership guide, designing a membership program section, you'll see that we encourage organizations to ask these questions when they're designing the program initially. But they're also really good questions to ask as you're considering making changes to the program. You're going to want to ask who this element of the membership program is for and why would they want it? And what does this cost you in actual costs and staff time, as I've mentioned before? And this first question is really important because a lot of news organizations tend to look to fellow news organizations for clues about what their membership program should look like. But really the people that you should be looking to for clues are your members and what they say they want and what they say they want out of the relationship with you. And so we really, at every turn, encourage news organizations as they're iterating on their membership program to center the member in the decisions that you're making rather than it would be really easy for us to offer X, so we should offer X. What in the data, what in the audience research you've done indicates that this is something that your members even want you to be spending your time and resources on. And last but not least, if you're having trouble prioritizing amongst the benefits that you have, you might use that impact effort matrix that we had talked about last week when we were doing the product section of this course. Here you see that we adopted the impact effort matrix for membership program benefits. So you're going to assign a value to a benefit based on how much you know your members appreciate it, how much your members use it. So you're going to know that from the data on how much they use it or what they said in a survey about your benefits. And so you're going to prioritize those that are high value and are pretty easy for your organization to provide. And then if you have a little bit more sort of bandwidth, you would focus on those that are high value, but a little higher effort to provide. And we encourage you to take a look at those high effort benefits and consider whether there's anything that you can do to make those a little bit easier to offer on your team. Maybe people really love your swag, but it's just tons of staff time to offer swag. You could do what the Narwhal in Canada did and bring on somebody for a couple of hours a week to sort of handle swag fulfillment for you. Maybe you work with somebody who produces online events that can do it in a more cost-effective manner than having several members of your team working on it. Consider ways that you can lessen the workload of those things that are high effort, but also high value. And the two types of changes, the second change that we see news organizations usually make in their membership program over time is the adjustments to their pricing. This is a really fraught decision to make. It's really scary as a news organization to change the prices up on your members because you don't know how they're going to react. I will say that it's not as scary as it seems. A lot of organizations do this over time, and we haven't heard of anybody that has had tremendous backlash to this. Often there's a little bit of explanation that goes a really long way. You're going to want to adjust your prices, or you're going to want to think about adjusting your prices if membership isn't bringing in enough money per member. If it's not bringing in the amount of money that you hoped overall, you might not be growing your program enough. But if you're hitting your member number target, say you wanted to get to 1,000 members by the end of the year and you get there, but it's not bringing in the amount of money that you need it to, that is when you might want to look at the price per member and think about whether you can make any tiny adjustments to that can really add up across the full member base. The first thing you're going to want to look at is, are your defaults set to what you want them to be at? You might consider, if you have a pay what you want model, adjusting that sort of default price that you put people at, adjusting that upwards a little further. If you have a tiered system, you're going to want to make sure that the pre-selected tier is the one that you want most people to end up at. Sometimes people will pre-select the lowest one because they think that's the easiest way to get people in the door, but people tend to select the pre-selected defaults unless they can't afford it or they want to give more. So put the default at the one that you want most people to pay. Another way that you could potentially shift that upwards is by looking at those benefits that your members find most valuable and moving one or two of those to a higher tier. An example of that is from the Texas Tribune. One of their most popular drivers for membership renewal is the $50 discount they give to their annual festival Trib Fest. And so one of the things that they did, I think in the last year, is they moved that $50 discount to Trib Fest to the next tier up from what it had previously been to. And they saw many of those members move up to that higher tier as a result of that one change to the program. One caveat that we give to that is that you should make sure that those benefits that you move upwards to a higher tier are some of your more transactional benefits, like discounts, like partner benefits, that kind of thing, rather than the engagement benefits that sort of build that two-way relationship with your members. You want to make sure you keep those accessible to your full membership base, but you might consider those discounts and other things as something that you can upsell. And the last one, of course, is just literally tweaking the prices upwards. A lot of news organizations over time end up raising their price tiers by $2, $3, and generally see that goes over just fine with their members, especially if they give them the option of staying with the lower price if they can't afford that main one. And we have a few examples in the pricing section of the membership guide that I will share out that walk through how a few organizations made those decisions about prices, but these are some of the ways that we see organizations address that sort of price, revenue per member, not quite ending up where they need it to be. And we invited Anna to join today because Zetland in Denmark has done a phenomenal job of sort of cultivating a feeling of community amongst their members and making them feel a part of this sort of bigger group of people that support Zetland, and they leverage that feeling of community and dedication to the brand in some very successful ways in 2019 and 2020, turning their members into ambassadors. And I just think it's a great story and full of really great tactical examples of how other news organizations can do this. And we have some detailed case studies that we can share as well afterwards. And are you all set with screen sharing, or do you want me to share my screen? I have it on my screen as well, if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, it's just the Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So maybe you do need to, I thought I had all the kind of everything checked, but yeah, I think you need
No
to.
problem.
Do you have the latest? If you refresh your screen, I think you should have the.
Great. All right, let me refresh and then I will pull it up for me.
So hi, everyone, and welcome to my basement. This is it's such a strange pandemic setting, but I have two small kids that are still awake upstairs, so I am in the basement. So I thought basically I would, the reason why we were asked to talk is that Zetland has had some pretty successful ambassador campaigns and have basically managed to create a relationship with our members that is much more
I love you.
the mission.
If there's somebody who's not muted, can you make sure you mute yourself? Thanks. Go ahead, Anna.
No, just to make that kind of shift. I mean, Zetland has always told our members that we are for, with and by them, that we are indeed membership, both based and created and everything, but to actually take that to the next step and build it into not just like the financial model, but also the campaign structure is a pretty radical move, and it's not without its It's not as, it sounds easier than it is. So I'm going to take you through some pretty details of what we did. So basically, yeah, the next 30 minutes, I'll take you through what Zetland is, what kind of news organization we are, and the two last campaigns, and then what we're thinking of this year. And then some key learnings of like, yeah, being like a bootstrap organization, which I think you are as well. We're in pretty amazing growth spurt at the moment, but we're still dealing with, it's still pretty much, yeah, bootstrap organization. So some key learnings and then any questions you might have. So Zetland is basically, I mean, it's a very humble brag to say that we're the most successful digital newspaper in Scandinavia, but we currently are. So in the Nordic countries, we're the only ones that have succeeded in creating like a truly digital product. We don't have a print arm. The mission is pretty clear, hopefully, at least to all of our staff, but I think also to our members, that we want to create sound public conversations based on insight, curiosity, and focus. So this, like, we don't even have like a target group. Our target group is basically all Danes that are curious about how things work and how society work and how to make things better. Like that's the target group, which also makes marketing pretty like, oh, it can be anything. But it is actually a pretty hard focus when you think about it in the daily work. We also have like a side to that is that we want to make journalism an obvious choice for the younger generations. We're currently succeeded, and I think a part of that success is that we don't claim to be for the kids these days, we just are. So our membership currently, we have 30% are under 30. So it's a success story, at least internally in Denmark, where the public kind of perception is that no one is going to pay for news. And it's like, well, if you do it in this kind of way, then yeah, some might. So when it comes to funding, we're 91% membership based. We do get a little bit of funding from the Danish state, but it's not a lot. And it's actually creating so much hassle for us that it's a constant debate on whether or not we should just be without it. We're also 100% transparent, which I think is pretty key to the success of the campaigns, but I'll get into that in more specific, what that actually means. We started with long form back when that was kind of a radical idea. And it was basically the notion or the inspiration was Apple and the whole idea you can buy one song. Like, why not just buy one great article that is not as long as a book, but not as short as a normal article. And that was a great success, and one got nominated at least for a couple of great journalism prizes in Denmark, but wasn't a sustainable model in the end. So it turned into this digital newspaper in 2016. And we still, the model is the same in the sense that we publish 2 stories every day, only 2. And then there's a news podcast in the morning and there's one in the afternoon. And that's it. So it's doable. You can actually get done with it, which a lot of people really enjoy in this digital age with abundance of content and choices. And then we became profitable last year, which was like a big, So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that's the nice kind of the one that dips right over the key thing at Zetland that we keep repeating is that we're not doing journalism to make money. We're making money to make journalism. So it's actually more of the nice result we got this year, which is a little bit more than last year, is still, that's the equivalent of, we had a really good reporter that wanted to work for the EU Parliament instead, and her salary is what then takes us further up in the breath. That's what, things are tight. We really spend all of our money in the product and just making, because that's our key success, at least in kind of what we believe, is that what we do, it works when it's high quality. So just like more, and then more people will like it. That's been the kind of investment strategy. And the 2 people on the slide are the 2 directors. So Leah Korsgaard is the editor-in-chief, and Taub Klitgaard is the director. And every year we publish, like, we're 100% transparent. So we publish where the money comes from and all of that. And here you have the numbers. So Ariel asked me about this. So how long did it actually take you to get to where you are? And this is like as you can see, there's some jumps, and the jumps that don't immediately crash are the successful member campaigns, basically. There are anomalies. So the one that basically where you have like there's a skyscraper in the middle. Yeah, that one. That is a lesson that you should never give your product away for free. So that was giving the product away for free, and then no one stuck around for it, which is like, that's a hard, that was, I think I wasn't around for that, but that was a brutal, the month after was brutal. Because Zetland is an app that you need to, like, you need to buy the product and then get the app. So you do actually need to make some kind of investment in terms of using it. So yeah, that when it's free, people won't do that. And then you have that. But as you can see right now, it's getting, yeah, it's a high growth. So this was the big hit. This is the Member Get Member campaign from 2019. And the Membership Puzzle did a case study on this. So if you want to dive into get more details that I don't cover, then, you know, please read that and feel free to reach out if there are more questions on that one in particular. But it's a pretty impressive campaign. I mean, this is also a little bit cheating by numbers. In reality, the start of the campaign is a skyscraper, and then you have like then it quiets down, and then you have another high in the middle, and you have really high at the end, which is kind of but this is the accumulative graph where you can see just how many members we got from just those 32 days, which is quite extraordinary. So how do we do that? Well, Zetland has this thing about how, yeah, this is pretty key. I mean, you're reporters, so you know this. We had a massive burning platform. Basically, before the campaign started, the then director, Jacob Mull, who's in those pictures, came out saying that things are going okay, but unless something happens in 6 months, something has to happen. And he put out two, like, either someone buys us, or you guys get together, you get your friends to sign up, and things can happen. But things were just moving too slow, especially because of the way we were funded. It started as a Kickstarter campaign as well, and we needed more people to sign up, as clear as that. So basically, he decided to just share everything. We had shared everything in the past, but the pie chart that I'm sharing here, I don't think you can see it, but it's a little bit like the highest is like a sliver where there's a little point down to. That's basically saying that we spent 0.6 kroners out of, like, if you take the entire budget is 100 kroners, so 0.6 kroners were pizzas at the Christmas party. Like, this is the level of detail that we share with our members. Like, this is what, so it's not like we haven't splurged on anything and we really need your help. So that's the bare bones of it all. And basically we turn the members into ambassadors. So this is, I think, is a neat trick that also came from why this wasn't one of those skyscraper, but it actually turned into something successful, was it had a digital arm. So Zetland, we prize ourselves of being media and tech combined. And like when we're best, it's media, tech, and engagement. And I am head of engagement at Zetland. So those three we have very ugly sides that shows that those three sides make the magic. And this is a part of it. So this is the tech part of the engagement, which I think did the trick, is that everyone got their own personal sign up page, basically, that they could share. So here it says, Anna Ebbesen, that's me. And that's the red is then, it would be whatever the members signed up with. So if you have people signing up with weird names, that is what you will then have, which is turned out to be hilarious during the campaign. But anyway, I think that was a really key trick. It was also pay what you want. So it offered people, like, it was basically, you could do it for free. You can give whatever you want, whatever you think it's worth. And then that level of investment, even putting in zero, had a higher, like, they would actually have a higher retention rate than those from that previous campaign where zero was the default. So the act of adding in what you actually want to add is a level, like a micro engagement. It was then, we had like banners on the site showing the number we wanted to reach, and then had a mail to all of our ambassadors where we had an ambassador list. And I added this at the very end because I was like, there's one thing missing, and that's all of this text was super Zetland-y. Like the payoff you would get when you typed in different numbers would be something that was like, I think zero says something like, we're looking forward to surprising you with great content. I think number 50 was like, that's a great number. Over the set amount was like, we will love you to death. And like, we had fun with trying to make this as personal as possible, which I do believe have an effect. Like, never do this, like never do this with some standard code. Like this part, you really need to have your own code for.
I had a question, Anna. If I remember correctly, when Yucko put out that sort of financial tell-all about Zetland's finances, at that point, you asked people to sort of sign up to be an ambassador, right? So you got a sense of who might want to do it, and then you made another, and you emailed that initial group all this information, and then continued to ask members to become ambassadors after that first group. Is that right?
We grew the ambassador list in a way that's now illegal. If you take the next, because of the GDPR thing, if you take the next slide. So we did a separate email flow. So if I referred someone, the referrer I would get an email saying, hey, your friend signed up, you're amazing, thank you so much. And then we added people to the email list because they had now become an ambassador. In a way, you cannot do that GDPR wise now. So this, like last year, we asked people to sign up, and then they also did. But it was one of those when we realized it that we had to then purge the email list because of the European Union stuff. It's cool, but that was a challenge. But anyway, the email flow is also very specific and then also highly personal. So the first you sign up is different from the second, from the third, from the fourth, and they were from different people. It's all automated, but we did sit down and write. I think I wrote out 25 emails last time, and they did the same for that campaign. And then everyone will have a personal dashboard that ranks them of like how they've ranked according to all members, which is I was surprised that no one reacted to that. I had actually, because Denmark is a social democratic nation, like no one should claim they're better than anyone else. But as long as we didn't broadcast those, like there's not like an official scoreboard, people actually like to see where they were ranked in the cohort basically. And then it had, like, as you can see there, like it goes up towards you can see how far we are from the target. Which is a very big motivator. I would say, I've added later on, but just like having a beginning, middle, and end is a motivator. Sometimes you just have to trust that element itself. And then we also sent out merch to everyone who wanted it. So we created what we called an ambassador kit, which was full of stuff that should make it easier for you to have a conversation about Zetland. So postcards, these business cards that are photographed, which had that individual, which is held printed at the individual URL on. Different posters with the principle for journalism. We have this thing called cress in Denmark that people use on top of our open-faced sandwiches with eggs. This is very specific Danish stuff, but it's like these little small seeds, and you can grow them in cotton. So anyone that has like a cotton ball, put water on, you put on the seed, and then you can have magic. So it's like a fun gimmicky thing, and the seeds are lightweight, and so it's an easy thing to kind of send, and it's like it's a curiosity. All Danes know what it is, but it's also something a little bit maybe for the older crowd. So it hit like this very sweet spot of something that people would photograph and post about, which is also a nice kind of added element. All kinds of stickers and bumper stickers and basically whatever people wanted, we send. And it worked. I mean, the magic was, people really band together. Again, I do think if you tell all your loyal users that, we're going to die if you liked our product so far, you now have to do something. And we created a lot of these like thank you videos. Tak is thank you in Danish, where we called all the ambassadors. So what you see there is a lunch table, and these are all both that's an editor that's sitting in the front of the image, but the one across from him is one of our programmers, and they were all dialing up people, telling them, thank you so much. Like, this means the world for us. We can continue doing our business, which then again heightened their involvement. And it was all, these are like human emotions. You have to think about it. It's all human emotions, and you need to cater to that. So this is the tough follow-up. I got hired 3 weeks before Denmark shut down because of COVID. And I was tasked to do that campaign, which is like, so we were immensely successful last year. Let's see if you can pull it off again. So in actually the same year, I've lived a couple of years in the States, and I really enjoy the notion of the NPR pledge drives, where that they're happening. And it's like, there's something about like the like similar to like Christmas would be weird if Christmas were all of a sudden in March or something. There's something nice about things that are routinely at the same time. So I decided to have it like the same time, but a little bit shorter because it's a long time. For like 32 days is just too long. So 3 weeks instead. We added in here, you can see like the small banner that's on top of Zetland. And on the app, we also did like a small, it's called an own ad in our terminology, that you can click on and it would expand, and you could copy your link directly, or it would take you to your personal page where you can then, which was then new, if you go to the next slide, where people could then personalize. Oh yeah, so this is the thing. So leading up to it, in order to grow that ambassador list, we built it into our annual survey. So the annual survey is something that everyone a lot of our members fill out or see. And in that we added in, by the way, before you leave, would you like to be on the ambassador list? Because we need something, and we need a place that you can communicate with your core or the people that are interested in this bit of your business without, draining all the entire member base. So that was a big bump, basically. And we added it in all the kind of places that we could, in like the routine morning emails, like all different kind of places to get more people to sign up. So we would have like enough of a healthy list to kind of, to launch the campaign. So again, we sent out those who wanted it merch. So given we also have it's like being sustainable as a part of our thing, you can't send, merch no one uses. So, and you can't send out too much either. Like it's already killing our CO2, what do you call that? Anyway, we're stacking up basically because we did this. So we didn't want to overdo it. So we sent out 1,004 packages, which was completely insane given, at the time we had 14,000 paying members. So this is a lot of packages. I have never sent out this amount of packages in my entire life. We added in a couple of things like a personal letter with envelopes and stamp, because we thought that might be a fun thing. Again, also something that people might post. Unfortunately, we made the mistake of making that letter. We pre-wrote a couple of things, and that actually turned the personal letter unpersonal, which is unfortunate. It's one of those where you can see it afterwards. I couldn't see it while we were doing it, which is like a classic. But anyway, so we're probably not doing that again. And then a tote bag, and then we'd actually made like a nice poster. I'm very inspired by the museums that will have they're very good also in their membership program to have these kind of. I actually have one here this is like from the Brooklyn Museum, like this kind of where you do there's something nice about people having something hanging on their bedroom wall or wherever in their house that actually has the connection to you, much more than actually those posters that we did send out, which were the key principles. So I think that's another learning. Like this year, I'm definitely sending out that very beautiful campaign poster that we did, because I do think that has I'm more interested in people having that around than the more kind of activist stuff, which are the key principles instead. I also think that it's like, given our growth, like that's from another time, like the activist kind of posters that worked well when Zetland was fighting for survival. At this level, I think we need to move to somewhere else. But that was the merch package. We also
have about 5 minutes left for the presentation.
Yes.
And time for questions.
I do get stuck in all this, so many details. So we also we had some of our members to do a Facebook group, because we needed something is like email. There's also, you don't want people to unsubscribe, but we needed a forum where people could share their experiences and also just like, get them all the digital stuff that they needed. So we built a digital package that we grew. We had challenges, they shared, experiences, and they also like that happy smiley. It says 20,000 new members. We did it. That was kind of the moment we hit our first mark. Someone posted in that group. Like, that's not me. That's, one of the very engaged members. Like, and I'm not a moderator. It's moderated by members. It's for them. It's not for us. It's theirs for them to share. Which was, super cool. I didn't like the fact that it was on Facebook, but I like the fact that it was on, a network where people are anyway. It's kind of the balances. we did some personalization. We're not going to do that again. That actually turned out to be a bad idea. They liked it. Our ambassadors liked it, but it didn't have, the people that received those pages didn't have as high conversion rate as those that didn't. So tough learning. But one thing that was good is that we built it into the sharing function. So when you share an article from Zetland, the individual ambassador link actually goes with you. So if I send it to my aunt going, you should read this article, if she then clicks on, Anna shared that, what it says up in the kind of small banner one, it says that Anna made this article available for you. If you then click become a member, it takes you to my sign up page. And that really works. So this is these are the top ambassadors, and that is ourselves, which is, so when it comes to like numbers, it skews the numbers because this is us, like that's the social media we side. Ven is friend in Danish. So that was kind of my team's, kind of the one that we would share on all social media push, which was quite heavy. Leah is the head of, these are all like basically high up people at Zetland that we did win backs for. So we send out emails for former members to ask them to sign up with different types of reasons for why. And, it worked. The one thing that I wanted to add on that is that we had, given that we now know that the personal recommendation that works, we decided to see if it worked in a commercial space, and it really has. Like that's now a separate part of my marketing, the differentiation when it comes to like getting members through the door. That's a Danish comedian that's pretty big, and he is posting his scoreboard where it shows that he's number 2. So he's asking all his fans to sign up through his link because he doesn't want to lose, and he thinks number 1 is another comedian that we have another relationship with. And that's like, I just want to flag it because influencers get a lot of, it can be a tough business. But we found that people that are fans of us that have a platform, paying them like affiliate really just works. And in the spirit of all of us, it's 100% transparent. So they tell people how much they get from us, and it works. Like they have super high retention, the people that sign on. Highly recommend it. Anyway, 3 is a charm. I'm going to do it again this year, but now with no pretext. It's just because it's a great product. So if you move to it's basically the image is just us asking people if they're up for number 3, and they are. So we basically looked into like, why do people actually recommend? Because we want to evolve our game. So why do they do it? And they want to give their friends the best. And the best is a great product and a great mission. So adding that, okay, fair enough. We're just going to do it in like a pretty straight this year. We're also not going to pay them because we were like dipping our toes in like, do we want to do something where like you get 1 member, you get a tote bag, you get 2 members, you get a cup. And I think this is the Danish thing, they didn't want it. Everyone mentioned in the qualitative research, as a pyramid scheme. So the thing about giving an ambassador package before the campaign start actually takes you around that, because you give them just like credit for being amazing people, and you assume that they're going to do something, and that then motivates instead of it becoming payment. It becomes motivation. So yeah, so now it's actually available. The links are open now basically to see for everyone, and it's already generating steady revenue, which is interesting. That's a test. So yeah, so that's like our key learning is that you should definitely try to make those room for engagement all year in any different way. And you need to encourage just like simple people saying your name is also making you an ambassador. Like if you add it, otherwise people will think that they need to do a lot and it overwhelms them and then nothing happens. But that is just like, if you keep it at the basic level, that is probably enough to get them then to do what you actually want them to do, which is to share the link and actually get people converted. You really need the code. Like it is a tech thing. If you want to use tech, you really need the code. And then like another thing that we realized, because we can see like the aftermath of that, is that you should never make the NGO mistake of fundraising for a specific thing, because maybe strategy changes and you told them, which we did in May, that we wanted to fundraise for a specific thing or a specific reporter, a specific like position. And we found out that was a mistake. And now people are like, I thought this was what this is what I wanted, right? And it's just you have to be, again, transparent and open about it and communicate it, but it's definitely easier if it's just a general growth thing.
Great. Thanks, Anna. I'm going to read out some questions for you from the group. First one was from Elena with Billy Penn in Philadelphia. She's wondering if you could share how much you think you paid for swag during one of these campaigns or during these campaigns overall.
I can't, to be honest, I actually can't remember because I had an emergency print of a lot of posters that were insanely expensive. So I think I'm trying to block it out, but I'm happy to find those numbers and share.
Okay, great. We'll get those afterwards then from you and share out with everybody. We have related questions about your referral tech from Danya, also with Billy Penn, and Sapna with Cal Matters. What are the mechanics of this referral system? How do you get those proprietary URLs? What's the sort of logic flow? What do you measure and analyze?
Yeah, so we have a pretty basic setup. So we have a bit of the membership base that's proprietary. Oh, it's not proprietary code. We've actually sold it, so you can buy it if anyone's interested. We sold some of it last year. And please do, because then we can share development costs of building new things. So if anyone is interested in getting a hold of our code, let me know. That's actually, I'm actually not kidding. Let me know, because it's just like the more people using it, the better. So that bit of it is our own. And therefore we can very swiftly make campaign sites. We can very swiftly make this kind of, machine basically, because it is basically just like taking what we already own, so our domain, and then adding in those individual numbers. And it's basically, there's a formula for it and that's it. Sorry, that's not a very kind of succinct, but if you're on your membership page, there's something called settings, and on the settings, it takes you to your individual page. So, but it is I actually say that we have a bit of my tech issue at the moment is that I'm struggling with the more kind of 2010s urge of wanting to create a profile-based system, which there's a part of me that also feels like that's legacy tech and you shouldn't start trying to create profiles because no one wants to look at profiles. But there's definitely something about finding your link and what is my link and where do I find it that has been challenging. And right now we actually just made it a part of the burger menu on the app. So it basically has like, it's called Pass Zetland on in a different color than anything else. And if you click on it, it takes you through to your own link. So hopefully that makes it easier. In terms of measurement, we measure how many people are active, how many people are signed up. The people that are then signed up, how long do they stay for? How much do they end up paying? So the lifetime value of that customer. So, what are the churn rates? Is that any different from, in terms of like the cost of doing the campaign as well? And so far the 2019 people stayed on the longest that we've ever experienced. Like the retention was enormous. It was just, mind-blowingly high. Even if you just consider people changing a bank and then missing out on the credit card changes, and we at least have a drop off from such a detail, it was still, it was incredibly high. It was a little bit lower this time around, but we also had a change in, I think now in terms of like how money is worth differently. I actually think that there's a cohort between 0 and 5 that even if they handed over their credit card details, they are maybe I should think of them more as the zeros. And the zeros, we only it's an amazing achievement if we convince 20% of the zeros to become paying members. And it's a whole bit of the campaign is actually we only think about paying members. Mm-hmm. So my membership base is actually 20,000 people higher than what I've told you guys about, but I don't think about them because they're household members or they're gift cards or they're paid for by their employer or something like that. But I don't want to count on them because they have not just made that, it's not a conscious decision on their end. So I don't think of them as a proper member. The moment they convert into proper, in this sense, members, I will look at them. But until then, I'm just happy that they're there. And of course, they're a member. I haven't actually looked into whether or not our ambassadors are from which group they are. So it only matters in the sense of yeah, revenue, which is like I have to keep certain numbers in check throughout the year, right? I don't know if that answered the questions about the tech bit, but do email me if there are more like specific stuff that you guys would like to know more about.
And the other thing I'll mention is we also have another case study in the membership guide on an ambassador of Campaign by Door in Romania, and they built their referral system, a simpler one, but still a functional referral system with WooCommerce. So, and they have some details in that case study about that. And I will share one or two other examples of referral systems so you can sort of see the array that is out there. One thing I wanted to clarify, Anna, so when people if they put 0 down for that first month, all the people who joined through the ambassador campaign, they got bumped up to the normal monthly membership price after that first month, right? So it was only that first month that they got to sort of choose their price. And then from there, they got, okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. And the ones that gave 0 didn't give their credit card info, so they didn't get bumped up. They were more like a gift card subscriber, so the non-annoying kind. So we had a separate email flow for them, asking them to become a subscribing member at the end of that month. But yeah, it's always a tough sell just because we know that they probably never got started. So we rather have, then we get their email, and then we can always see if we can convince them in the bigger loop. Like we have a growing part of our new members are former members that come in through our emails to old members, giving them a good offer or just saying hi, like giving them a gift from now and then in terms of some great articles or that kind of thing. That makes them come back. And that's a growing bit for us, like really growing bit. Like I think it was 20% last year that came in that were former members that are now returning.
Thank you, Anna, for going into so much detail. And the case study that Yossi dropped in the chat, which we'll share in the post-call resources, gets into even more detail. And we have links to some of the ambassador kits and the assets that they created and things like that. So you'll be able to dig in on that, and as well as contact Anna. Her info is on the screen. We're going to move next to Bola of Black Ballad, an organization that we got to know at MPP through our first membership in Newsfund. And I asked Bola to come here today to talk about how Black Ballad has gotten to really deeply know its audience members and turn that into a whole host of opportunities for sort of cultivating community and building revenue streams from that, not just through their membership fees, but other sorts of sponsorships and things like that as well. So take it away, Bola. Let me know, just say next slide whenever you want me to sort of move ahead.
Okay, next slide. Thank you everyone for having me. It really is a pleasure and an honor to be here this evening from my couch in London. Yeah, I thought it would be good to start off with explaining what Black Ballad is. So Black Ballad is a publication, a platform for Black women in Britain and beyond. We started off in 2014 as a, just like a lifestyle blog for Black women. We ran that for 2 years. We weren't making any money. So we sort of looked around and, we really asked this question, what's the best way for us to monetize this platform? And so we did a crowdfund in 2016 to sort of like test this assumption. Would Black women be willing to pay for a membership? And luckily for us, they did. We had just over 300 Black women give us £13,000 to sort of start this membership, to use those funds to transition from the free blog into the membership that we have today. We did that in 2017. And we've been sort of growing steadily since. So what the membership looks like is we have a freemium, a standard, and a premium. For anyone can go to blackballad.co.uk today and give us their email address. When you do that, you get access to 3 free reads each month, plus our weekly newsletter that goes out to all of our paying members and subscribers. But if you want more than that, then you can get our standard membership, which is £4.99 a month or £49 a year. That gives you access to all of the content, plus discounts to some of the events that we run. And if you want to go premium, then that is £6.99 a month or £69 a year. And you get all of the above, plus you get access to our premium members Slack platform, where Black women can talk about all of the things that they want to talk about, but outside of the gaze of social media, people that want to be antagonistic against this audience, and so on and so forth. So we've been a membership for 4 years. We originally, our only funding was the £13,000 from the initial crowdfund. We then got a few grants, including a grant from the wonderful folks at MPP. So thank you again, Ariel. And we are currently in our, we're currently doing a seed round of funding, which we have been doing for about 2 years. We've been trying to pitch to investors to get £400,000, and that's not really worked out. So last Sunday, we asked our audience if they would be willing to do an equity crowdfund. And in the last nearly 100 hours, we've been able to gain nearly £200,000 in soft commitments from our audience. So I suppose this is what happens when you put an audience first and foremost. They're willing to pay that back to you multiple times over. Next slide, please. So yeah, a little bit about me. Clearly, I'm not a Black woman. I founded Black Ballad with my girlfriend, who's now my wonderful wife. Luckily, she's not here, otherwise she'll be laughing at me. But founded Black Ballad with my partner, who was a journalist by trade. As for me, I started off as a digital transformation analyst. So my job out of university was to really understand how technology was changing the media landscape and media business models, and really ask questions like, hey, why is BuzzFeed so valuable? Oh wait, why is BuzzFeed actually not recouping any of the value that they're getting from their hundreds of millions of users on their platforms and social media channels? So that's where I got my start in this sort of like world of media. And when I'm not building BB, I am spending far too much time scrolling through my curated list on Twitter, engaging in NBA Twitter, Black Twitter, because I love the culture, and media Twitter, which leads me onto this next slide. I think this is one of the truest statements I've seen about memberships and media. And, the reality kind of is a lot of us are just leaving a lot of opportunity on the table when it comes to our membership program, because for the most part, we just focus on content. And like, this was a lesson I learned super early on. This is a lesson I learned like really early on. As I said, we transitioned from this free blog to this membership platform. And, again, I'm not the target demo. So my question is, well, what do we need to do to make sure this audience pays for this? So we did a bunch of research. We did surveys, we did phone calls, we did focus groups to really understand what is it that this audience wants. And we used the answers that we got from all of that research and reflected that into the sort of crowdfund offering. So when we did our crowdfund, it was people purchasing memberships before we actually went live. And that was, that exercise was really instructive for, I guess, like understanding what value this audience wants from us. And it was also really instructive for like showing us that the value that the audience wants, like, has to go beyond content. Like the audience, Black women, they told us repeatedly that they wanted digital safe spaces. They wanted physical places to engage. They wanted to be able to find Black-owned businesses that they could purchase from and share with their friends. And so we've always had this sort of understanding that the membership is more than just the content that they read, the videos that they watch. It's this overall lifestyle experience. And pursuing membership, pursuing understanding has been my North Star for trying to figure out how we can unlock value for us, for our audience, and for the people that want to reach them. And that's why I say the next slide. That's not meant to be the next slide. I think we skipped some.
Is this the next one?
That is the next one.
Okay, they got
so
switched.
I flipped them around. Yeah, sorry, that's my mistake. So understanding is the fundamental asset for any audience or community. the more understanding you have, the greater your ability to build a business around that community and those that want to reach them. You know, the truth is, in the business that we're in, nothing is more valuable than your audience. But to me, the very next thing is your ability to understand what they want and figure out how to provide it to them, whether that is content, whether it's an event, a place just to talk, whether they want you to advocate for them or like anything else. So if we could go back to that, no, the other direction, please. Yeah, here. So for us, this is what pursuing understanding and delivering value looks like. Most of the people on this, most of the organizations on this call, you know, we start off by trying to create value for the audience. But for us, that's not just a piece of content. It could be like an article, video, podcast. It could also be a survey. It could be like a specific chat on Clubhouse or in our Slack channel. It could be an event. It could even be like a brand partnership. But either ways, we start off with, well, how do we create value for this audience? That piece of value obviously goes on to aggregate like the segment of our audience that's interested in that particular thing. And then we use the data from that to really understand, did this work? Didn't it work? Why didn't it work? What are the additional threads to pull from that? We use those insights to create more content that better aligns with that audience, but we also use that insight as leverage when speaking to and engaging with, you know, other brands, with brands, with partners, and then we figure out how we can build experiences paid for by our corporate clients so that we can literally do that whole thing again, so that our operation isn't just funded by our paying members, but it's funded by the people that want to reach and engage them. So what does this look like practically? So this is a project, this is the project that was funded by Ariel and MPP. In, I want to say about 2018, we found out the stat that Black women in the UK and in the States are 5 times more likely to die from childbirth than their white counterparts, which is a really harrowing stat. And it's not something that we expected to hear as a community, but as the stats started to come out, you know, people started to talk about their experiences. And what really helped sort of these stats gain awareness and attention was 2 really high profile incidences of, you know, Black women talking about their maternal journeys and experiences, and talking about how, you know, frankly, how bad it was. And so we took the position that, hey, this is really, really bad, but it also begs the question, well, what else do we not know about Black women's maternal experiences? And so we did a survey. As an analyst, I used to create these surveys for digital marketers and business professionals, and they were ridiculously long, like 85 questions. So I thought, okay, let's do the same for this particular topic, because we really want to find out about Black maternal outcomes. So we did the survey, 170 questions, and they will run from being as super basic as what's your ethnic background, you know, African, Caribbean, a mixture, mixed race, etc., to you know, give us describe an instance when you felt the National Health Service didn't take your sort of like issue or your complaint to heart. When did they not give you the care that you expected as a Black woman? And so we put this out without any paid spend. We distributed it amongst our email list. We sent it across our social media channels. And in just under a month, we had 2,600 respondents spend an average of 20 minutes each filling in this survey, giving us a total of over 150,000 data points. So for context, in the UK, we have this thing called YouGov, and it's sort of the leading platform for consumer research. The size of their Black female panel in the UK is 2,600 Black women. And we were able to equal that based on our sort of like audience base. If we can go to the next slide, please. So we, over the sort of like months after doing that survey, spent time analyzing the data and, you know, saying, well, now we have this data, what can we do with it? really trying to figure out how we can use the sort of the understanding, the insights, the data to build new experiences for this audience. So we had a run of articles over a 3-month period that delve into the individual sort of stories and themes and topics that came out like through the research. We were able to land a podcast deal with Acast, again exploring these experiences and allowing us to put faces and voices and names to you know, this 5 times more statistic. The Huffington Post in the UK caught wind of our data set, and they approached us to doing a takeover. So for a week in August last year, I think it was. Yeah, it was last year. A week in August last year, we had full authority over the lifestyle and parenting sections of HuffPost UK, and we were able to give a platform to the stories of Black women when it came to their maternal health. And that was really important for us, because actually one of the stats we found in the survey is that 89% of Black women felt that mainstream British media and British brands misunderstand or misrepresent and do not understand the Black maternal journey and how it's different to other women. On top of that, we were able to get advertising deals with, you know, Net Mums and the NHS. And we were also asked to present our findings to the National Health Service in the UK about Black motherhood up and down the country. Next slide. So what did this mean for us beyond creating a bunch of different stuff? We were able to tie a fair bit of membership growth directly to a bunch of these different initiatives that we'd run. So from the articles, the podcasts, the awareness that came from the Huffington Post partnership. 37% of the respondents for the survey actually ended up becoming freemium users. So we were actually able to add to our mailing list by running this survey, capturing the data and capturing the email address at the end. And ultimately, compared to the amount of money we received from MPP, we were able to get a return on investment of that by 3.5x. So like going back to the flywheel, I suppose the one sort of like nugget of information that I missed from that backstory is that when you become a Black Ballad member, you're asked to fill in this sort of like onboarding survey, and it's again as basic as, you know, what is your name and your email address, and it is as, you know, vast as how do you want to change the world. And, you know, in that survey, one of the things we ask our members is what content do you want to see, or what things do you want to see Black Ballad do? And, you know, talking about exploring motherhood was the 3rd highest thing in 2018, or prior to that campaign. So for us, when we look at this flywheel, we start with the sort of like analyze section, and it's the insight that came from the onboarding form that led us to obviously pitch a project and create all of these experiences. These experiences allowed us to aggregate Black women that were either mums or wanted to read and hear about their maternal journeys. We would then get that insight back and use that to create even better articles, podcasts, etc. But of course, use those same data points and same insights to drive the commercial deals and the awareness programs that we were able to land. So that's how this sort of like at a very super high level on this specific project basis, that's how this flywheel that sort of orients around understanding and data sort of works for us to help us to create these experiences for Black women. So I suppose what are the benefits of building a membership organization or media organization around understanding? First of all, it gives you like a unique data set for growth. With every article that you produce, with every podcast that you're getting the feedback from, with every survey that you're doing, you're capturing insights that no one else has. and you're putting yourself in a position to use those insights to drive growth in any aspect of your organization that your consumers touch. And is this something that other people could go and do? They could, but they can't do it exactly like you, because they don't have the relationship that your organization has with your readers, your listeners, your audience. So for an example, there's a, should I share this? Should I share this? Will I get in trouble? It's fine. There's a magazine in the UK called The Stylist that saw that we were, capturing data on this audience and really sort of having this fruitful conversation around Black motherhood. And they, wanted to copy elements of our approach. And so they decided to do their own sort of survey on Black motherhood and, Black women's stories. And they were only able to get 20% of the respondents that we had for our survey, despite them having a email audience that's 20 times larger than ours and a social media audience that's 50 times larger than ours. So even though they have a bigger audience, because they don't have the relationship that we have with Black women, they weren't able to pull off the same experiences and capture the same or similar insights at the scale that we have. And that's particularly important because, as we know, there's a lot of conversation going on around, third-party data, Google getting rid of the cookie, what Apple's doing with their platform. And, in order to sort of be successful in the next sort of epoch of media, it's really important that media organizations and membership platforms capture first-party data. And actually, my hypothesis actually is that publishers and those that provide media or membership platforms are uniquely positioned to capture data and to build understanding for specific audiences or sort of their audience base. And so the more you sort of invest in capturing data, analyzing that data, using the insights to build a better experience overall for your customers and consumers, the better. On top of that, again, you're able to not just provide eyeballs and attention for your corporate partners, but the more you can layer that with insights that, again, they're not going to be able to have anywhere else. If you could just go back 1 second, please. The more you can layer that, the better. And then, the fifth and final thing is that understanding, and I'm saying understanding rather than data, but understanding is a really malleable asset. You can take this insights that Black women want to hear or talk or understand more about about their maternal experiences, and you can pull that thread in a variety of different ways and directions. And if you have hard data to support that initial hunch, you can do it at an even greater scale. Next slide, please. So I've listed a few ways that membership organizations, community or audience-based businesses can sort of develop understanding within their businesses. The first that I've listed is surveys. So not only have we done this survey on Black motherhood, but we've also done one on, Black women in Britain. So in the UK, media, like most things, like politics, business, economics, focuses on the experiences of those in London. But we wanted to make sure that we were creating a membership platform for Black women up and down the British Isles. And so we did this survey called the Great Black British Women's Survey, and that was even more successful. We were able to have 3,600 respondents for that survey. But these surveys don't always need to be massive, editorially driven, pieces of work with 180 questions. Again, our onboarding survey has just 10 questions in it. We do polls on Instagram all of the time, just getting our audience's opinion on a variety of different topics. And so, yeah, you don't have to be constrained to these super massive surveys. Next slide. yeah, and then a few tips on like building these surveys, because the question we often get is, how did you get thousands of Black women to spend 20 minutes on the survey? The first thing we always try to do is, how can we center like our audience? How can we center Black women in the framing of the survey or the piece of research? So for the motherhood example, it's Black women are 5 times more likely to die from childbirth than their white counterparts. What else do we not know about this? Help us find out. And so this is really sort of like putting our audience at the center of the issue and making them part of us trying to figure out, if not a solution, then more talking points than we need to have. But we were able to do this because we had built trust with this audience prior to those surveys. And so, if you're going to have a sort of big editorially driven survey or big research project coming down the pike, it's good to start just building it's good to sort of start building awareness with your audience about that particular topic, so that they know this isn't just, it's not just a data grab, but you're really interested in having a meaningful conversation with them. And then, third of all is, be transparent about what you want to do with the data. When we look at regulation and where that's going, that's increasingly table stakes anyway, but, being upfront and saying, this is how we want to use the data. Just lets your audience know that you actually have their interests in mind, and you're not just trying to, again, be like Facebook. Next slide. Observation is another way of gathering understanding or data on our audience. So in the slides, we've got a couple of screenshots of some tweets talking about the rising price of plantain. So for those that don't know, plantain is a food that we eat. It's quite common in African and Caribbean communities. And, over the last sort of like 3 years, the price has gone up from like 4 for £1 to, you're seeing some of the anecdotes in the screen, in the on the slide. And it seems like really trivial, but we just noticed that, we noticed it ourselves because we're customers of the product too, but it was something that our audience was so annoyed about that they felt the need to talk about it. And so, okay, cool. How can we use that piece of understanding that our audience are super annoyed about the rising price of plantain and create an experience that's worth giving up an email address for, worth paying for, worth sharing with others? And so we did this really in-depth 2,000-word investigation on why the price of plantain is rising. And it touched, global warming, it touched, food gentrification, it touched politics, it touched all of these different things. And, when we think about how we create experiences for Black women, we're always saying, how can we create something that Black women can't get anywhere else? How can we create something that mainstream media not only can't produce, but wouldn't produce? And let's be honest, The Guardian, The Times, The New York Times, Washington Post, how likely are they to do a 2,000-word investigation on the rising price of plantain? They're not. And so, that's, just spending time observing your audience, looking at the conversations they're having, can be really valuable for pulling out really interesting bits of insight. And if you go to the next slide, just a few places on where you can sort of do that. So naturally, social media. But, one thing we do at Black Ballad is we make sure we follow all of our paying members, so we can stay on top of the conversations that they're having, and that's just part of our normal feeds that we consume on socials. For those of you that have Slack channels, Facebook groups, members forums, those are really, really great places to sort of again, like, just observe the conversations that people are having. Even with the most recent episode of Meghan Markle versus the royal family, we noted that our audience weren't really particularly interested in reading think piece after think piece. They just wanted a safe space to talk about how that piece of news was affecting their daily experience in the virtual workplace, the discussions that they were having with their families. And so, we chose not to run we ran one article about that particular topic, and instead of like doing more editorial coverage, we just had a watch party with our audience as the sort of special with Oprah came on, and we sort of discussed that as a community on Slack. And then actually events, so when you're bringing your community together, physically eventually, or virtually like this, looking at the comments and the conversations that are taking place and using those as inspiration for future activities. And then the final thing is engagement data. So what we have here is Black Ballad's marketing funnel, and it is literally just a list of all of the different types of metrics that we capture. If we go to the next slide, it's a little bit bigger. And we use this framework called Pirate Metrics, or the R framework, because it's AARRR, so R like a pirate. And yeah, so we align our metrics across awareness, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. And so when we're producing an article, we're dissecting it at every single level. When we distributed this particular article on this social media platform, did it do well or not? Yes, no, why? How many, or for each article, how many new paying members or like subscribers is it generating for Black Ballad? The members that are on Black Ballad, how frequently are they engaging with the platform, and so on and so forth. And asking these questions of each article or of our consumers, and then saying like, why is this the case after the fact, is really useful for, again, just understanding what it is that this audience wants, what is it that they need, what is it that they are craving from our membership that we are either delivering or not delivering.
Well, can we move into questions now, or do you feel, should we go into is there one, this last slide? Okay.
We can
I just want to make sure we get a chance to answer everyone's questions as well, because there are a couple coming in. But the first one was from Chicas Poderosas, who was wondering, what platforms do you use for community engagement? And then Ava, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, wanted to know, how many people is your team?
I'll start with the second question first. So our team is a team of 6. It was a team of 3 until January this year. We added 3 more people. So we have my partner, who's my founder. She she's the overall head of content, and she works on sort of our commercial sales as well. I head up our growth, technology, and data. We have a head of editorial who handles the day-to-day running of our editorial operation. We have a junior content creator who dabbles in text, audio, video, and photography. So like a content all-rounder to produce all things that we need. We have a community executive who takes the lead on our social media and community efforts. And then we have an office manager who sort of handles the sort of back office of the business. And then in terms of our community sort of management and engagement, so for our private members platform, we just use Slack. So that's what we use to sort of engage with our premium members. And then sort of for the other social platforms, we actually just use the native tools. So we don't use anything like Hootsuite or anything like that. So for Twitter, we use a TweetDeck that allows us to sort of like create these columns so that we can see a whole bunch of Twitter activity. And then for Facebook and Instagram, we just use the native tools that they provide.
Thank you. And there's a Yossi dropped earlier in the chat, and we can share in the post call resource as a deep dive into this community that they've built on Slack for their premium members. Elena was asking, and I think this was referring to Minimalist, the organization that you mentioned that tried to do the survey as well, or so sorry, Silas. Were they also a Black run org, or were they sort of a mainstream? Okay.
No, they were a mainstream organization, and they're one that we have had like a relationship with on and off. But we know that they have been sort of like looking at transitioning from a print first model to a membership based model. And so, we've had conversations around, they should try this or they should look at that. And so it was watching them attempt to do some of the sort of data-based initiatives that we run was really illuminating. It's not necessarily about the size of the audience that you have. It's maybe more about the sort of concentration of the audience that you have as it pertains to a particular topic or identity, or in a lot of like cases, geography, and really sort of like, you know, focusing your coverage, focusing your experiences that you're providing for consumers based on where there's this really nice through line that's common amongst your community.
Right. And Elena also asked, how do you frame your data and community feedback as understanding when you're talking to potential corporate partners? Great question, Elena.
So, you know, we, from the very first, you know, conversation, we make it clear that we're a media and data company for Black women in Britain and beyond. And that sort of like leads to the very natural question of, well, what kind of data are you capturing? And so it gives us the opportunity to talk through, you know, starting off with these editorially driven surveys, but actually talking how data and understanding is a part of every single part of the Black Ballad experience, from content, you know, audience development and everything like that. And so by sort of being like super upfront about the fact that data runs through the entire you know, operation, it gives us the opportunity to quite quickly like do the education and pitch, you know, ideas that, you know, maybe our counterparts that just, you know, provide advertising, you know, wouldn't necessarily you know, be able to have. I would still say though that it's, you know, super early on in terms of us doing database initiatives with corporate partners, but especially like in the light of you know, Black Lives Matter last you know, Meghan and Harry, you know, in the UK, and again the most recent, you know, incident in Minnesota. There's definitely you know, more demand amongst our corporate clients to sort of figure out what is it that they're not getting about this audience. 75% of Black women are more likely to purchase from a brand when they display or talk about or engage with Black culture positively. And so, you know, we're seeing, you know, a lot of people sort of scramble to sort of donate to you know, this cause or that cause, or post, you know, Black squares on their Instagram you know, pages, but our audience is saying, hey, that's not enough, you need to do more. And so the conversation that we're having with our brands is, well, what more can we do? And then again, that opens up a really nice opportunity to sort of have that conversation with them about, you know, the data and everything else.
I think I remember a conversation that you and I have had many times over that's relevant to all these organizations here as well, potentially, is positioning yourself as, like, defining your audience very clearly and positioning yourself as the best person to reach and serve that audience. A lot of companies, particularly traditional sort of legacy companies, don't know how to reach people in this new media environment, how to tell their message in an authentic way. And so I think you at Black Ballad have successfully sort of positioned yourself as the right conduit through which these organizations can reach and serve Black British women, and any sort of organization that is very clear about its audience and serves that audience very well could figure out a similar positioning. You were saying to me yesterday, and sort of how you would translate this to place-based newsrooms, for example.
100%. You know, I think, you know, I said sort of like half in jest, half not in jest, like at the very beginning, that I spend too much time in NBA Twitter, you know, Black Twitter, and media Twitter. And, you know, it's like a bit tongue in cheek, but it also speaks to the fact that we literally only consume the media that we want to based on our identities, our interests, and, you know, and our geography as well. I'm not seeing, I don't know, the stuff that exists in golf Twitter, Bitcoin Twitter, and you know, any other thing that doesn't pertain to my interests. So actually, if you're a provider of, you know, content, of experiences that are meant to reach specific audiences, whether that is again by interest, by identity, and actually even geography, you're sort of best off going all in on being super duper explicit in attempting to serve that specific audience, because they're looking for you, or they're waiting for the algorithm to surface your stuff. You know, a lot of times in media, we are not really happy with the platforms because, you know, they eat up a lot of the advertising revenue and opportunities. But these platforms are still really, really good tools when used like effectively to get your content, your brand, your experiences in the hands or like in front of the very, very people that would like most align with the content you produce at your purest form. And so, you know, from my standpoint, I like, will there be sort of like, you know, mass media products or brands? Of course there will be, but I really do think the future of media is really figuring out who exactly you serve and like focusing your whole content, audience development, data acquisition strategy around finding those people and super serving those people. Because you know, what you lose in quote unquote scale, you make up in your ability to, again, understand the things that they really need and then figure out how to generate more revenue per user off the back of that thing. So it starts off with the membership, and then you can layer on the events, virtual or physical. And then you can, because you have this really in-depth understanding, sort of like, you know, extract extra revenue from your brand partners and things of that nature. And I could go on, but I think everyone wants to.
Thanks, Bola. Very quickly for everybody who has stayed a few minutes past time, no office hours next week. We will send out in the post-call resources. We have one more slide deck for you. We want to hear you say what the membership tactic you'll implement in the next month, the next 3 months, the next 6 months. We'll be doing breakouts around what you say you're working on in the next couple months. So please be sure to jump into that slide deck before next Tuesday to answer those questions. Our final session is next week. We'll do breakouts to discuss that homework. We'll have a panel discussion. And last but not least, we have one other small homework assignment since we didn't get to it today. We want to hear what burning membership questions remain for you. We've left some open time in next week's session so that we can dig into some of those questions. So the same Jamboard as last time, we'll drop the link in the email that you get tomorrow. Just head to that Jamboard. If there are any big sticky membership questions that we have not tackled for you yet, drop them in there because we will figure out how we can address them either in next week's final class or in the office hours that follow. So 2 small homework assignments, things you'll do for membership in the next month, 3 months, and 6 months, and also any burning questions that remain. Thank you, Bola. Thank you, Anna, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us for a few extra minutes. Sorry for running over. Thanks for all the great questions, and hope that Anna and Bola introduced you to some like new ways to think about working with your members after they become members, how you can continue to deepen that experience and make it increasingly valuable for them over time and keep them around. Thanks, everybody.